It's hard to believe that Marriage Revolution was born out of our broken marriage 22 years ago. But as God so often does, He turned our mess into our life message. And there's no question that marriage is Star and I's message.
I'll never forget that late night drive from Little Rock to Houston back in 2009. We were in a position that we had prayed to be in at Family Life, one of the leading marriage ministries in the country. Everything should have been right, but it wasn't right. Hans was making a difference in his work, but we couldn't ignore the ache that we both had to be face to face with couples.
So we started to pray. And on that drive from Little Rock to Houston, God gave us the vision for Marriage Revolution. We dreamed of a marriage organization that would provide help and hope to hurting couples without ever letting money stand in the way. 5 years later, we've provided help to hundreds of couples through marriage counseling. And because of God's provision through our faithful donors, we've never had to turn someone away because of money.
What excites me more than the hundreds of couples that Hans has been able to help over the years are the individual stories behind each of those numbers. As I've personally prayed for the couples that Hans has met with, I've been overwhelmed to think of the way that this ministry is impacting eternity. Lives have been changed, marriages have been impacted, kids' lives, even legacies have been affected. And ultimately, eternity will look different as a result of the work that we've been able to do. Most recently, I've been especially encouraged with how God has used us in the lives of Andrew and Kate Howarth.
And I remember that first time coming in here, because I was coming to check the box. I was coming to just say, hey, at least I can tell my kids that I tried.
And I knew that that's why she was it was tough for me to be here, because I knew that she didn't want to be here and she was only doing it so she could tell the kids, hey, Mommy tried.
And I came in here so angry and so upset and so crushed. You just gently and nicely said, no, Kate, you first need to honor God. And then you started talking about marriage and what it's supposed to be like, and to have God, you look to Him as your inspiration of how to love one another. I had never thought of serving my husband. I had never thought about being unselfish, and that we were just two imperfect people that made a covenant with God when we got married. And I just never, I left here a different person.
Their lives, their kids' lives, and their legacy will never be the same. The world is different because of what God did through us in Andrew and Kate's marriage. We want to see that type of life change happen over and over again. When we first got started, we set out to be a gospel-centered marriage counseling ministry. But in 5 years, God has turned it into much more. As we've helped more and more people, the demand for our time with couples continued to increase to the point that we started to turn people away, not because of money, but because of time and capacity. This time, God used this mess to change the way we delivered our message. We didn't want our message to be limited to meeting with couples face to face, nor did we want it to be limited to our schedule. So we made a decision to start speaking and writing. As we spoke, people listened. We started to do a few speaking events here and there, and before we knew it, we had developed a 2-day marriage conference that we've been able to do at about 12 churches across the country, and even most recently on the other side of the world to the people of Cambodia. And this next year, we're incredibly excited to join Family Life's Weekend to Remember speaking team, where Star and I will be given the opportunity to communicate God's blueprint for marriage to more couples than ever before. As we wrote, people read. I started writing regularly towards the beginning of this year, and currently we're averaging over 5,000 hits per month. And some of my most popular blogs are reaching twice that number. I never would have dreamed. We also just released our first free ebook a few months back. And finally, we're so excited to be releasing another book soon that I believe will be a must-have for every married couple. In it, I'll share practical marriage tools that will benefit any marriage, regardless of age or condition. Look, Our goal with all this activity is us trying to reach the most marriages possible in the most efficient way possible to have the most effective impact possible. I hope you agree. God has done more than we ever thought possible over the past 5 years. And in some ways, if we had to shut the doors of this ministry today, every bit of time, money, and energy would have been worth it. But as long as we're living, there's more work to be done, especially now.
Abraham Lincoln said that the strength of our nation lies within the homes of its people, and we couldn't agree more. But if this is true, our nation is struggling because our families are really struggling. Marriage and family is under attack more than ever on so many fronts, and we want to be a voice of truth in the desert to help turn the trajectory of marriage, families, and legacies around in this country. And even more so, identify and equip more marriage revolution couples like Andrew and Kate that will help us to help countless others.
God has surrounded me with incredibly godly and gifted men on my board of directors. They're stretching me to think how God might want to accomplish 10 times what's already been accomplished all over the next 12 months. We can't wait to see what God does.